Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, aka your friendly neighbourhood spoiler man, and in my opinion, Age of Ultron is one of the most underrated movies in the MCU. The film had the difficult task of following the first one, which revolutionised the comic book movie and set the stage for Marvel to dominate the world. Where Avengers introduced the group and established the team, Age of Ultron focused mainly on developing their character and showing the repercussions of their actions. There's a ton of Easter eggs in the movie and certain elements that set up things which wouldn't pay off till much later in the saga. I've binged watched the entire MCU countless times, and with all of this information stuffed in my head, I'm here to break down some of the insane details that you may have missed in the movie. Obviously, there will be heavy spoilers here, so if you still haven't had a chance to see the film yet, then I highly suggest that you turn off now. If you enjoy the video, then don't forget to leave a like and make sure you subscribe to never miss one. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into our breakdown of Avengers Age of Ultron. Okay, so Age of Ultron centers around Tony trying to prevent another attack similar to the Battle of New York. He does this by trying to make Earth's best defender a quote-unquote suit of armor around the world. In doing so, he steps over the mark and creates one of its most formidable foes. Ultron to me has always come across as an extension of Tony and what the character would be like if he didn't have restraints holding him back. Ultron reflects Tony in several ways, and lays throughout the film is this idea of reflection that exemplifies the struggle between the main protagonist and antagonist. This is shown in several shots, including two statues that appear to be mirror images of one another when the Quinjet flies by them. Vision looks at himself in a reflection overlooking New York, and even Thor at one point in the film says, "In every realm there is a reflection." Ultron and Stark are extremely similar in certain ways, and this is even exemplified in certain lines of dialogue. There's of course the obvious one that Claw points out when Ultron says a Stark quote verbatim, but there's also another moment that reinforces this notion. When talking to Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, Ultron says about how everyone ultimately creates the thing that they dread. He says that people create smaller people, and then struggles with the noun before saying children. Later in the film, when discussing Clint's kids, Tony says, "and there are smaller agents." Both struggle to come to the word children, and it showcases the similarities. The statement that everyone creates a thing that they dread also foreshadows how Ultron ends up creating Vision, who destroys him at the end of the movie. Ultron also drops another line that foreshadows things to come much later, and that is when he says, "When the earth starts to settle, God throws a stone at it." The Infinity Stones of course ravage the universe, including Earth, and this is a nice bit of subtext that gains a lot of weight with the following films. Another theme that is prevalent throughout the movie is that of teamwork. Their inability to work together would lead to the rift that splits the group in Civil War. Tony creates Ultron with Bruce Banner, and both refuse to tell the rest of the team. When discovering this, Tony and Cap have an argument in which they talk about their mortality, and the former says "we'll die," which is rebuffed by Cap, who says, "then we'll die together." This shows that Tony thinks of himself before all else, whereas Cap thinks of everyone as a team. It eventually gets resolved in Endgame when Tony rejoins the team and helps them to time travel. Tony is one of the only people in Infinity War that didn't come out a loser because his wife survived, and from this he was able to create a family. He could have easily stayed selfish, not helped the team with the heist, and lived out the rest of his years happy. However, he brushed this to the side, decided to make sacrifices, and joined the team, repairing the rift, and thus saved the universe. It's an awesome thing that is set up here and shows the development of the character from a selfish, self-centered person into the sacrificial hero. This isn't the only element that foreshadows Endgame either, and there are actually a number of scenes here in which the film is paid lip service and things slowly start to fall into place. At one point in the film, when defending his actions, Tony points to the sky and says, "That up there, that's the Endgame." The look of the Iron Legion design is also extremely similar to the quantum suits in certain aspects, and it looks like Stark carried across many of the elements. Tony's vision at the start of the movie has a lot of foreshadowing in it, mainly the death of the Avengers, and this pretty much sets him on the road to creating Ultron. Whilst most of this scene doesn't necessarily return, the landscape does look very similar to the final battle in Endgame, and there are some other things that pop up too. Cap's shield lies completely split, and this is what happens with the item during his fight with Thanos. The shield itself also foreshadows something later in the film, and that is the death of Ultron. Both the shield and the way that Alpha Ultron's body is torn apart at the end mirror each other massively, and the outline of them looks extremely similar. We almost see Cap lifting Mjolnir in the movie, and Joss Whedon later confirmed that he was worthy, but he didn't do it because he didn't want to hurt Thor's feelings. I'm not sure how I feel about that exactly, but yeah, that's what the director said in regards to that scene. During Endgame, we can see that Natasha has left some ballet shoes on a chair, and this is a callback to her time training in the Red Room, which we see fleshed out in this film. This appears during a hallucination provided by Scarlet Witch, and in this scene, Thor is also affected. In this vision, he sees Heimdall, who greets him as the first son of Odin. This is notable because he greets him as the first son, and not the first child, which we would later learn in Ragnarok is Hela. Thor begins to have a vision within a vision, in which he sees the Infinity Stones for a brief second. Lightning shoots from him after this, and it strikes a person, turning them to dust. Those killed by the Infinity Stones in Infinity War too turn to dust, and I love the consistency here. After this vision, Thor sets out on a journey to discover the Infinity Stones. He sees flashes of them in the pool later, and when he returns to the Avengers he says, "I've had a vision, a whirlpool that sucks in all hope of life, and at the centre of it is that." This is referring to the Mind Stone. The Mind Stone actually sits in the centre of the Infinity Gauntlet, and this incredible bit of subtext shows how far ahead Marvel were thinking. During this scene we also see the Avengers arguing over whether to upload Jarvis's consciousness to Ultron, and Banner says, "I'm in a loop, I'm caught in a time loop, and this is exactly where it went wrong." This is important as we know that Feige and co had the basic plot of the Infinity Saga sketched out, and time travel was likely the solution that they were planning on using to save the universe. Banner states that this is where it all went wrong, and this shows that they could have destroyed the Mind Stone at that very moment, and thus Thanos would not be able to collect the stones and wipe out half of all life in the universe. There are other nods to the movies in the film, and even a hint that the Nick Fury we see is actually Talos in disguise. At the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, we discover that Talos has been masquerading as the character for the entire film whilst he takes a vacation. It is possible that he has done this at other points in his career too. In Captain Marvel, we learn that an obscure fact about Fury is that he can't eat toast that's been cut diagonally. In Age of Ultron, we see Fury tucking into a sandwich that just so happens to be cut diagonally. So either he got over his phobia, or this was actually Talos. We also see the Grand Central Station clock has been replaced with a memorial to the first responders of the Battle of New York. The original was destroyed during the fight, and thus in the Marvel universe they had to put something there instead. Thor gives Captain America some Asgardian liquor, and then when Stanley asks for some, he says it's not for mortal men. He was fine giving it to Steve because, as we learned in the first Avenger, Cap can't get drunk. Ultron wipes all of the digital copies of the Avengers files, and thus the only way that they can learn about Klaue and Strucker is through Steve's. In the series, we have learned that Steve still gets his mission briefings on paper, and thus they are able to find things out about the villains. Ultron says that Wanda will tear the Avengers apart, and in some ways she does, though not in this film. During Civil War, Scarlet Witch is instrumental in the Sokovia Accords being created, and these lead to the Avengers going their separate ways. The sun's going down big guy gesture that Black Widow does is of course a punchline used in Thor Ragnarok. I'm sure you knew that one, I'm just being thorough. Terrible, I'm sorry. Anyway, as mentioned in our last video on Civil War, which you should definitely check out if you haven't, War Machine's chest is decorated with Ultron's skulls for all of the machines that he killed during this movie. In Ant-Man, we also see that on the front page of the newspaper there's an article on the Battle of Sokovia. The film of course references a lot of other things in the Marvel Universe, and the movie is filled to the brim with callbacks to the comic books. There's too many to mention, but some of the most obscure ones are that we follow Helen Cho for a big chunk of the movie. Helen is the mother of Amadeus Cho, who in the comics is a version of Hulk. The Hulkbuster station is called Veronica, which is a nod to Archie comics, as Bruce's love interest at this point was Betty, and Betty and Veronica are of course a pair in those books. Ultron is trying to make Vision his ultimate form, and the back of the character's head actually looks a lot like Ultron's face from the comics as well. Though Ultron doesn't go into this upgraded body, the upgrades that he carries out in the film actually make a lot of sense. When fighting Captain America, Cap managed to smash his chest with a shield, and this severely damages him. In the final version, Ultron's chest is reinforced to stop this from happening again. Similar to this, the movie has its own references to internal parts and arcs that are set up and paid off later. James Spader voices a member of the Iron Legion, and he would of course go on to voice Ultron. This explains why Ultron sounds like him, and not Paul Bettany. We also see Bruce's pants in Stark's lab, showcasing that he probably worked on them. They're stretchy to fit both forms of the character, so there would need to be some alternate development methods to the fabric. Captain America goes toe to toe with an Ultron sentry and ends up severely damaging it. We can see that the one that Vision confronts at the end that these are the same robot due to the shoulder cut and missing arm. We also see in the corner of Hawkeye's farm is a target with a worn out bullseye, indicating just how good of a shot he is. When approaching the tractor, Tony says hello dear, and this is because it's a John Deere tractor, and the phrase peace in our time, which is uttered throughout the movie, actually has a lot of subtext to it. This was used by Neville Chamberlain in 1938 during the Munich Agreement, which said that Great Britain and Germany would not go to war. Similar to the film, this search for peace did not go well, and yeah, the MCU did it again with an incredible number of Easter eggs and nods to other things. Anyway, that's our entire list, and as always with the MCU, I had a hell of a lot of fun making this, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the tidbits, so comment below and let me know. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the insane details that we noticed in Captain America Civil War, as there's some crazy things in that, so definitely check it out after this. Every month on the 15th we give away free Blu-rays, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning the Infinity Saga box set is leave a like and subscribe with notifications on. If you want to support the channel and get to see content early, then please consider clicking the join button. You can also come chat to us on our Discord server, link below, or at DefinitionYT on Twitter. Those are the best ways to keep up to date with the channel, so hopefully we see you over there very soon. This is a channel for people who are super into superheroes, so if that's the kind of thing you like, hit subscribe. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I've been Definition, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.